everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we have got a how to play video for Star Wars Destiny, which is a collectible card game, but collectible dice game as well. Kind of got an interesting little twist on that for you there. And if you do like what you see while you're watching this how to play video, please be sure to check the description below for ways to either support the channel or purchase Star Wars Destiny for yourself. So without anything else, let's get right into how to play Star Wars Destiny. Also, a quick little side note, while you're watching the video, you may see times when the dice are off of the character cards or support cards or on them. And just know, I was trying to make sure you could see the artwork of the cards, but in retrospect, I realized that may be confusing as to whether the card is in the dice pool or not, which you obviously don't know what that means right now, but you will later. And so just know that if the die is in the dice pool, then it needs to be off of the card with the other dice in the dice pool. If it is not in the dice pool, it should be on the character card or support card that it belongs to. Each player has her own deck that she uses during the game. This starter set includes 2 decks that should be played against each other. For this starter set, every card has an individual number in the bottom right corner of the card. One player takes the cards numbered 1 through 23, and the other player takes the cards 24 through 46. Next, each player finds her character cards and places them in front of herself, face up, along with that character's dice. All remaining dice are set aside for now. Each character has all 6 sides of their dice displayed on their character card here. Each player then sets her battlefield card and a reference card aside face up in the play area. Then each player shuffles her remaining cards, places them face down in the play area, and draws 5 cards to form her starting hand. If a player does not like any of these cards, she may shuffle any number back into her deck and then redraw back up to 5. Sort the various game tokens into damage, shields, and resources, and place them all near the play area. Each player gains 2 resources and places them near their cards. Each player then rolls her character dice and adds up the total shown value. In this case, 2. If the players tied the amounts they rolled, then they will roll again. The player with the highest total chooses which battlefield they'll be fighting on. She then places the battlefield next to her deck. The other battlefield is removed from the game, and its owner receives 2 shields. These shields are placed either both on one character or split between the 2 characters. Finally, place all character dice on their matching characters. And that's the setup. Throughout this tutorial, cards will sometimes be referred to as either ready or exhausted. If a card is ready, for instance when it is first played, it is upright like this card is. Certain abilities or rules may require a card to become exhausted, in which case it is turned sideways like this. Exhaustion does not stack, and once a card is exhausted, it may not be exhausted again until it has been readied. In Destiny, the players alternate taking turns. The player who controls the battlefield takes the first turn. During a player's turn, she may take 1 action, seen here on the reference card. Almost everything players can do in the game is an action, from playing cards to rolling dice. The 6 actions a player may take are: play a card from her hand, activate a character or support, resolve her dice, discard a card to re-roll her dice, use a card action, or claim the battlefield. If the player does not want to take an action, she may pass. However, when both players pass consecutively, there is an upkeep phase to prepare for the next round. During the upkeep phase, the player and opponent do the following: ready their exhausted cards, and return all dice in their dice pools to their matching cards, gain 2 resources, and then discard any number of cards from their hand before drawing back to 5. Then the players alternate taking turns again, starting with the player who controls the battlefield. Continue taking turns in this way and going through upkeep phases in this way until a player has won the game. And speaking of winning the game, there are two ways to win Star Wars Destiny. Either the player defeats all of her opponent's characters, or if one player has no cards in her hand and no cards in her deck at the end of a round after the upkeep phase, she loses and the other player wins. If both players would lose this way, the player who controls the battlefield wins. Cards belong to one of four colors. Blue represents the Force, red represents command, yellow, which I don't have any cards of, represents rogue, and gray represents everything else. To use some cards, the player must spot a character of a specific color. For instance, here, this says spot a red character. This means that player must have at least one of those characters in play, such as the strike team. Now let's discuss each of these possible actions in more detail. There are three types of cards a player can play: events, upgrades, and supports. The card type, as you can see, is listed just above the ability description. To play a card, the player must spend resources equal to its cost, in this case 0, 2, and 4. When a player plays an event card, she follows that card's instructions, in this case reroll an opponent's die. Then that opponent either resolves that die or removes it. Then the player will discard the event into her discard pile. The discard pile should be kept near the player's deck, and the cards in it are face up. An upgrade must be attached to one of the player's characters by placing it underneath the character like this. Upgrades have repeatable effects and stay in play. Most upgrades come with an extra die, and like characters have 6 sides of their die referenced on the left side of the card. When a player plays an upgrade that has a die, take that matching die and place it on the character card, just like the character's die. A character may not have more than 3 upgrades at any given time. However, if a character already has 3 upgrades, the player can choose to replace an upgrade that is already attached to the character. To do so, the player only spends the difference in the resources between the 2 upgrades. So in this case, to replace the Jedi Rival with the Crossguard lightsaber, the player would only need to spend 1 resource, since this upgrade cost 1 resource and this one costs 2. However, if the player were going to replace an upgrade with a less expensive upgrade, as you can see here, replacing Crossguard lightsaber with Jedi Rival, then that upgrade replacement is free. The replaced upgrade is discarded into the discard pile, and remember, if it had a die associated with it, that die is removed as well. To play a support, the player places the card on the table next to or in front of her characters. Similar to upgrades, supports have repeatable effects and stay in play. Some supports, such as these droid commandos, have a die which also comes into play with them. As with characters, these dice are placed on the card. Activating a character or support is how players roll dice. To activate either a character or support, it must be ready, and by activating it, the players exhaust it. The player then rolls all dice associated with that card. Those dice are then put in front of the player's characters to form her dice pool. Any dice in the dice pool may be used during future turns. An activated character also rolls the dice for any upgrades that she has. This of course means that a support only ever rolls its own dice. The player uses the dice in her dice pool by taking the resolve dice action. The player may resolve any number of dice in her pool as long as they all have the same symbol. So with these 2 dice, she would only be able to resolve one of them at a time. However, if this die face were up instead, she could resolve both at the same time. Dice are resolved one at a time, and after a die is resolved, it's returned to the card that it came from. Each die symbol means something different and has a different effect, which we'll discuss more momentarily. The side of a die generally will have a white number value above its symbol that indicates how powerful it is. For example, this means the player can generate 2 melee damage to a character. So let's discuss each of these symbols. This symbol indicates melee damage. This symbol indicates range damage. This symbol indicates a number of shields the player may give to any character. However, a character may never have more than 3 shields. This indicates a number of resources for the player to gain. Disrupt indicates a number of resources the opponent must lose. This symbol makes the opponent discard that number of cards randomly. The focus symbol allows the player to turn this many other dice in her pool to the side or sides of her choice. This symbol indicates the player may use the special ability found on the card for the die. And this symbol indicates no effect. Some dice have one or more blue sides with a plus before the value, as you see here. Sides of the plus may only be resolved at the same time as another die in the player's pool that shows the same symbol without a plus. When resolved, the plus value is then added to the other die to create a new value, in this case 4. Some die sides have a small resource icon in a yellow box, as you see here. This is the cost of resolving the symbol on that die. Damage from a die or a die resolved with modifiers must be dealt to a single character. Damage is tracked using these tokens. If a character has any shields, block 1 damage per shield and discard the shield token after it's used. This number is the character's health. When a character has damage on it equal to its health or more, it is defeated. Remove all dice associated with the character from the game, including any upgrades the character may have. Any such upgrades would be discarded into the discard pile, and the character is removed from the game. That character can no longer be activated, be the target of effects, or be spotted to play cards. As an action, the player may discard a card of her choice from her hand to re-roll 1 or more dice currently in the pool. The player must choose all the dice she plans to re-roll before re-rolling any. Some support, upgrade, and character cards have special actions listed on them. These actions are preceded by the word action in bold, as you see here. To resolve this action, the player follows the card's instructions. Only one player can claim the battlefield each round. When the player claims the battlefield, she may immediately use its claim ability if she wishes, found here. If she did not control it already, she now takes control of it by moving it next to her deck. For the rest of this round, the player who claimed the battlefield automatically passes all of her future turns, but her opponent continues taking actions until he passes as well. Remember, this is different than when a player passes normally, because when she passes normally, she is able to play again if she wants on her future turns during that same round. But once both players pass consecutively, the round ends. There are a few important game terms that appear on cards which may seem simple, but let's take a moment to look at each of them anyway. The word after indicates that this ability is used after something has finished occurring. In this case, Kylo Ren must have been activated for this ability to occur. Alternatively, if the game term used is the word before, this ability must be used immediately prior to whatever the listed thing is that must occur. Whenever damage is unblockable, it cannot be blocked by shields. This also means, though, that the character receiving the damage does not lose any shields in the attack. Unique cards have this diamond before their title. The player may not have more than one copy of a unique card in play at a time. When a die is removed, it is returned to the character or support card it came from without being resolved. A player can only remove dice that are in a player's dice pool. When a card is revealed, it is shown to all players and then returned to its previous place. Keywords are shorthand for abilities that appear on multiple cards throughout the game. Here are the keywords players are likely to encounter in this starter set. Before one of the player's characters with Guardian activates, she may deal it damage equal to the value of a die showing damage, either ranged or melee, in her opponent's dice pool. Then remove that die. This keyword only appears on upgrades. After the attached character is defeated, the player may move this upgrade to any of her other characters. The upgrade die moves to the new character card even if it was in the player's dice pool. After playing a card with Ambush, the player may take one additional action. Some cards have subtypes listed above the card's abilities, such as weapon or title. Subtypes have no inherent rules associated with them, but other cards may reference them. And that's how you play Star Wars Destiny. Now, in this case, we were using 20 card starter decks, plus our team of characters, and one battlefield for each player. In a full normal game of Star Wars Destiny with fully customized decks, the players would have a 30 card deck, a team of characters, and 1 battlefield each. The rules do include instructions on how to customize your decks, the rules for building the decks, and for creating those character teams, but I'll leave those rules for you to discover on your own. So thank you for watching this How to Play video. I hope it has been instructional and helpful and that you enjoyed it as well. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Also, be sure to check the description below, as I said, for various ways you can support the channel, including buying Star Wars Destiny for yourself. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.